As we get further away from the season and closer to the NFL draft, I feel like Aaron Smith went from a rising prospect to a prospect that we've forgotten about altogether. Oh, yeah, it's locked on HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darrion Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current contributing writer at USA Today Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Make it Locked On HBCU, your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off, it does not mean that the journey is over. Just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusive. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Today's episode is brought to you by Nissan, the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay with us for the Armada Team of the Week later in the episode. We'll wrap up today's episode with a look at the first four versus being a 16 seed. I'm going to break down the difference, even though every team or most of the teams in the first four are 16 seeds. In segment 2, I want to look at the layers of Alabama State's victory over Jackson State that got them their first SWAC championship in almost a decade and a half. But I want to kick it off with somebody you probably have not heard about in a long time, and that name is Aaron Smith. Now, you may be wondering, what happened to Aaron Smith? Nothing. That's the problem. See, Aaron Smith, once upon a time, was a rising prospect. He was going to the Shrine Bowl, and I thought that was always, and we always talk about the Shrine and the Senior Bowl and the Hula Bowl. We talk about these games as being opportunities to really stake your claim as being taken serious as a prospect. And I do believe that Aaron Smith had the potential to do that. Unfortunately, an injury held him out. And with that injury, that moment right there, over the course of 3-4 days that kept him out of practice in all or the entirety of the week, that led to a complete change in trajectory for Aaron Smith. I'll tell you what, I never, first, before I even say this, let me give a disclaimer. The way that I approach draft talk is completely different now. I don't do speculative reporting based on what I feel about a player. I do more so observational. I look at how players are discussed. I try to gain trends because I years of saying, "Oh, we think this player should get drafted or we should have this amount." I got a little bit bored of that, especially when we were disappointed every year, and I got tired of being disappointed. So I'd rather prepare myself for what's to come and start looking at it differently to guess who will get drafted. I didn't think that Aaron Smith had a good chance of getting drafted right when the season ended. But then he gets invited to the Shrine Bowl, and let's be real, that's a great opportunity. It's not the Senior Bowl, though. It's not the Senior Bowl in terms of the way the league tends to look at you. Shrine Bowl is a whole lot more hit and miss. You had guys like Mikey Victor. You had guys like Sunday Otta Anderson, who was really one of the better players at the Shrine Bowl in 2024, and he didn't get drafted either. Aneem Dankwa, he didn't get drafted either, and he had prototypical size to go with his impressive performances at the days of practice of the All-Star game. But Aaron Smith, I didn't really see him as a guy who was surging until I seen that. And it's like, okay, at least let me keep my eye on him and let's see what he's able to do. The Shrine Bowl invitation didn't change the way that I looked at Aaron Smith, but it did change the way that I thought others looked at Aaron Smith. We're about a month and a half away from both. We're actually like kind of in the middle. We're a month and a half away from the NFL draft, but we're also a month and a half away from the Shrine Bowl. But I was talking about the latter. The Shrine Bowl was about a month and a half ago. I haven't heard Aaron Smith's name since. I have not heard anybody utter the name Aaron Smith since. I wish that he was able to make it to the HBCU Legacy Bowl. I don't know why he wasn't. If it was still a lingering injury, I I think he could have got a late invite. It would make sense. We're talking about having some of the best players, and Aaron Smith definitely meets the quota. But you didn't see him at the Shrine Bowl because of an injury. You didn't see him at the Legacy Bowl, which means you didn't get to see him at the HBCU Combine because you don't get the 40-yard dash, the vertical, the measurements because of those things. Now you're questioning certain aspects about the player that are still unknown. I think that the South Carolina State Pro Day is going to be huge for Aaron Smith. We talked about how the HBCU Combine sometimes kills pro days because we've seen you do it all here, and rightfully so, because this is where you get the most scouts. Aaron Smith is one of the examples where that's not the case. If you want to see Aaron Smith, you're going to have to show up to the South Carolina State Pro Day. Makes it an event, makes it a draw, so I'll give you that. But in general, the fact that we've heard nothing about a player who was at the Shrine Bowl, it should be concerning. I don't know where his stock was, and I have even less confidence to say where his stock is now. I don't think that he did anything to improve it. He didn't do anything to drop it. He's just not a name that I've heard thrown around a lot. I wish that I could say otherwise. And I think that he had the opportunity to change that. He's the style of linebacker that a lot of people want. He's a guy who can go sideline to sideline. He's a guy who can operate in space. You want those type of linebackers. This is an NFL that is starting to lean more into the run, but they're not all the way there yet. They still want those linebackers who can fly around sideline to sideline more than anything else. We haven't gotten to the point where we want big linebackers who can thump. We haven't gotten there yet. So with that being the case, Marquise Bell was out here playing linebacker. You know what I mean? So we have to be honest about today's NFL. Aaron Smith would have fit in well. He would have fit in very well. And I hope that he can still get a training camp spot. But I'll just keep it light, man. I don't think that things are trending upward for him. I think that things are definitely trending in the opposite direction, or at least staying steady. And that's not what you really want right now. You have guys like Elijah Williams, guys like Robert McDaniel, guys like Carson Vincent. These are all players who are trending in the right direction because we're starting to pick up steam. It's kind of like when they say you want to get hot at the right time. This is the way that I look at it. Aaron Smith had a good season. I don't want to disrespect him or his talent by saying that his stock is trending the opposite direction and where you would want it to, but it's about, do you get hot at the right time? So if Aaron Smith had a hot end to the season, if Aaron Smith had a hot senior season, okay, that's great. It put him in these positions, but unfortunately an injury kept him out of the Shrine Bowl. We didn't see him at the HBCU Combine. We didn't see him at the HBCU Legacy Bowl. So now all of the work he did during the year, that postseason opportunity where so many HBCU athletes shine and it's drastically important, he's not winning that box. He's not checking that box off. That's a problem. That's not getting hot at the right time. That's getting cold right before the playoffs. Unfortunately. And I don't say this to blame him at all. This is not his fault. This is a lot of things that go around that are not on his shoulders. He couldn't control it. But I'm not here to blame him. I'm here to, in my opinion, accurately portray what has happened with his draft stock. I hope that in the next couple of weeks, I don't know when the South Carolina State Pro Day is, but I'm hoping that he runs a good time. I'm hoping that he looks good in the drills. I'm hoping that, you know, he comes in strong on the bench press because we talk about play strength as something that you want to look for him with. I like Aaron Smith. I would like to see good things happen for him. But let's push forward and let's look at Alabama State because this was a big deal for the Hornets. This was a big deal for the Hornets to be able to knock off Jackson State and most importantly to be able to knock off Mo Williams. Let's explore that as we continue with today's episode of Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by the all-new Nissan Armada, the team of the week, brought by the 2025 Nissan Armada because each week, especially during the March Madness tournament, our Locked On college basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart. From top-seeded stars to unexpected upsets, these guys showed the strength and sheer power needed to push their team forward. This week's Armada in clear-cut team of the week is the Florida Gators. The Gators, led by Walter Clayton, 17 points, just dominated the SEC tournament, winning each game by at least points. So make sure you're checking out Locked On Gators with my guy, Brandon Olson, one of the most interesting and funny guys that we have on the show. It's clear that our team of the week is out here, or excuse me, on the network. It's clear that our team of the week is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can be in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of Nissan's outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop nissanusa.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Fabric. Fabric is here for you. Listen, life moves fast, especially when you have a family. One day you're watching your kids take their first steps, and before you know it, they're off to college. That's why securing their future is so important. Fabric by Gerber Life makes it simple to get term life insurance that fits your family needs. With Fabric, you can apply for term life insurance online right from your couch. You could be covered in under 10 minutes. In many cases, no health exam is required. So that gives you peace of mind. As a parent, I want to make sure that my family is financially protected no matter what. Fabric gives me that peace of mind and also affordable coverage while we're at it. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their families and apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. That's meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. For your second listen, make sure you're checking out Locked On College Basketball. It's the biggest time of the year in college athletics, arguably the biggest college event, period. March Madness. So make sure you're checking out Isaac Shade on Locked On College Basketball. There's layers to this Alabama State victory. There's layers to what Alabama State has been able to accomplish in this draft, or excuse me, in this tournament, because they ran through the Tigers Den, knocked off TSU, knocked off Grambling, knocked off Jackson State. And I could argue they were underdogs in every single one of those games. I counted them out in every single one of those games. You know, first one was just personal bias. That was TSU. Ain't no way you're going to beat them. Knock them off. Then Grambling, they came off of beating the number one seed Southern. So I would say that the momentum was sided with Graham. Alabama State knocked them off. Then you get to Jackson State, and flat out there, the number 2 seed. They've been one of the best teams in the league all year long, and you hadn't beat them in a while. You knocked them off. And I want to start right there as we peel back some layers, because Alabama State won their first SWAC tournament since 2011. That's nearly 15 years. That is nearly a 15-year drought from the last time that they won the SWAC tournament and were able to be in the big dance. But I'll tell you what I think makes this so much sweeter is that you beat Mo Williams to do it. I don't know what the feelings are about Mo Williams out there at Alabama State. I'll tell you this. Of course, when you win, trash is going to be talked. I didn't feel like there was much love in the air for the old ball coach. I really did not. I don't know. Could be wrong. But I don't care if there's love or not. Being able to beat the coach who left you to go elsewhere, you didn't fire him. He left you to go elsewhere. And you beat him and stopped him from getting his first SWAC championship. That's got to mean a lot. That's got to be something that you wake up the next day and say, you know who doesn't have a championship? Mo Williams. You know who doesn't have a ring? Mo Williams. You know who we just beat? Mo Williams. And you know what? I look at the history of Jackson State versus Alabama State. The Hornets do not have a lot of success against JSU. They play about once a year. And Mo Williams was at Bama State for 3 seasons? No, 2 seasons, but they played 3 times in those 2 seasons. Beat them once. Actually beat them and then left. So the last time that he played Jackson State as a head coach for Alabama State, they knocked off JSU. So anyway, that was the only time that happened during Mo Williams' time at Alabama State. Since Mo Williams has left for JSU, Bama State has not knocked off Jackson until Saturday. And it was a phenomenal game. It was a game that I genuinely enjoyed. You had the idea of one team breaking a long streak, or a long drought rather, where Jackson State hadn't won a title since 2007. It's been since 2007. We going on almost 20 years since Jackson State has won a SWAC men's tournament. Well, we're going to get closer. Now, instead of 18, it's going to be 19 at least. At least 19. Because Alabama State ended their 14-year drought, 2011 to 2025. I can only imagine that this was more sweet because of everything that I said. Being able to knock off a coach who left you to go to another school, being able to beat him for the first time. Listen, this is Madlock's first SWAC tournament victory. I thought the game was interesting because there was two factors that really define it. I'm going to get off of the Mo Williams thing because it makes it a little extra special. It makes it a little extra, means a little bit more. But in general, I think we should get to the game itself. I don't want to make it all about the Mo Williams Bowl, even though that was a talking point going into the game, of course, as it should have been. What was interesting about this game is there was two qualities that I thought really began to define the game: the 3-point shot and then the paint. I'm gonna lump the paint in with a lot of other things, so I want to make sure that I just say the paint here. But the 3-point shot defined the game because that's all Jackson State, or that's all Alabama State was doing. They were shooting so many threes that I began to get frustrated. Honestly, I began to get frustrated with the offensive game plan. I'm like, man, you got to take a different shot. At some point, I was sitting here like, at some point, you have to take a different shot. You look at the numbers, man. Jackson State took 17 threes the entirety of the game. Alabama State took 16 threes in the first half, and they only made 3 of them. So it's not like you cashing it. You brick, all the checks bouncing. But you know what they say, shooters shoot, right? Shooters shoot. And that's how you go from going 3 of 16 in the first half to going 6 of 13 in the second half. And that's the big reason on why you were able to go. You were able to bump your points up. That and free throws. You only had 1 free throw attempt in the first half. Then you end up going, 10 times. You get 10 free throw attempts in the second half. That definitely makes a difference. But that's the reason that you were able to make that level up. But during that first half, I'm like, gosh, it felt like it was about 3 in a row. It felt like it was about 3 to 4 possessions in a row where you're coming down, shooting threes quick, not getting deep into your set, not taking the clock down any. You're taking 3-pointers and not getting rebounds. The not getting rebounds brings me to my second point. My second point is the idea that, like, guys, the energy level of Jackson State in the first half versus the second half is the most obvious distinction in this game. I'm just looking at Alabama State 3-pointers because I'm like, golly, and you go back and look, they take like 90 more 3-pointers than the next closest team. They're the only team who has surpassed 900. Going into that game, I looked at their stats, and they were at 895. They took more than 5. They took about 22, 3 of 16, 16 in the first half, 13 in the next half, way more than 22, 29. So you're looking at almost 920, man. Almost 930, excuse me. So this was rough. This was rough, but they end up getting it together. And once you start making them, it's like, oh, okay, I see it. I see the vision. Shooter's going to shoot. But anyway, in the first half, you weren't getting no rebounds. I don't know what was going on. I felt like Alabama State was struggling to corral rebounds. They were struggling to grab the ball as it was coming down. It was bad at some points. But then also Jackson State, Shannon Grant Jr. was the most productive player for Jackson State. He had 20 points. Nobody else had more than 10. He was constantly around the boards. But here's the deal. If I'm only going to go 6 deep into my rotation, and I know you had an injury, but if I'm not going to go deep into my rotation, I don't necessarily know if I want a big to be my most productive player. And that really does cost you, because if my big is my most productive offensive player and I'm having Alabama State run up and down the court offensively, they're defensively, they're applying heavy pressure. Everything is meant to tire you out because I can go deep into my rotation. You don't do that as Jackson State. and now I have Shannon Grant, a big, who is my most productive, you would assume that your bigs are going to be the quickest ones to slow down. You would assume that the bigs are the ones who are most likely to taper off. And as you get later into the game, if my guards can't make plays, if my stars cannot make plays, there may be an issue. And Shannon Grant did get tired. You can't blame him for that. Somebody else has to step up. Somebody has to step up. You probably, I understand that they don't go deep into the rotation on a regular basis. I think they only have 7 guys who played 10 plus minutes, and one got hurt in this game. So you end up pretty much going 6 deep for the majority of the game. But you could have used more bodies there. You could have used more bodies instead of going very, very shallow on your rotation, which is what you normally do. You could have used more people. That's just the way that I look at it. But Alabama State is now going to be in the first 4. They're going to be a part of that first 4 matchup. And I'll explore the first 4 plus what everything else that goes into play with it, which is the money aspect, the success, how it's viewed, all of that, including a quote from Robert Jones. I'll do all of that as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more, experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. So whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. If you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can help connect you with a freelance expert who delivered incredible results. Visit upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's upwork.com. Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day, every day, making it all the way to segment 3. And I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. I realized on yesterday's episode that I actually did not break down part of Robert Jones's quote that I wanted to. Luckily, I think the idea of being a first 4 team versus a 16 seed, just straight up, it deserves its own segment. It deserves its own legs because it's different. At the end of the day, it is different. Norfolk State men's basketball and Alabama State are not in the same position. They're just not, because one needs to play to get in. I'm one of those guys who I believe that the tournament is 64 teams. That whole 68 nonsense, that's not for me. That's not for me. I look at it this way. You have the first 4, St. Francis versus Alabama State, Mount St. Mary's versus American. Those are 2 16 seeds or 4 16 seeds playing each other. And they have to play for the right to be a true 16 seed. See, now here's the deal. Let's say that St. Francis loses. Fingers crossed. Let's say that they lose. What then? What then? If St. Francis loses this game, what then? Are you still a 16 seed? No. So what seed are you? We're talking about making a big dance. What seed are you? 16 and a half? 17? That doesn't exist. So that's why I don't really look at it this way. But it's not just the 16 seeds. You have those 2 games that I mentioned, and then also the 11 seeds have a play-in. Stupid to me too, but I get it. North Carolina versus San Diego State, and Xavier versus Texas. Those are 2 or 4 11 seeds. I keep saying 2 because it's 2 games, but those are 4 11 seeds who are battling it out for 11 seed to be the true 11 seed on their side of the bracket. Even saying all of that is so weird. I'm not a big fan of how it sounds. It's confusing. But what's the difference between a first four and a play-in? Because Robert Jones had an interesting quote. He says at the end of it, we should not look up and be a 16. I mean, if you're going to make us a 16, you might as well put us in the play-in game, because at least you have a chance to win that game and keep the journey going. You know what else you have? Money. Every play-in game. See, I may feel the way I feel about the play-in game. I may not really feel like if you lose that you're a true part of March Madness, but at the same time, you get a check for presenting or for participating, right? Like, to me, that 16 seed, you're a true 16 seed if you don't have to play in. But what are you playing into? The teams who lose in the playoffs or in the play-in game in the NBA, they're not playoff teams. You know what I mean? If you are in the NBA play-in tournament and you lose, you didn't make the playoffs. So to me, the NCAA tournament will always be a 64-team thing. But in actuality, it's 68. And the benefits of being in the play-in game is you get a check for that game. No matter what happens, for participating, you get a check. Then if you win, you get a check. Then if you play the next game, because you would have to then in turn play the number 1 seed, you get another check. That's the benefit. Because I'm kind of with Robert Jones. If you're going to make me a 16 seed, make me a play-in team. If you're going to make me a 16 seed, at least allow me the best opportunity to get 2 checks. He says keep that journey going. I'm saying let's get the money rolling. It's 2 completely different ways of thinking, but I think he feels the way I feel. You don't want to say that, though. I get it. I'm not going to put words in your mouth. I'm going to say what I say. I'd rather be the play-in team because I feel confident I could beat another 16 seed. But then also, I get 3 checks instead of 1. And the conference is going to be happy about it because now they get to divide up more money. You get 2 game checks and then you get a win check. I just think it's way more advantageous for all schools to participate and be involved in that degree. Let me know what you think. The 16 seed versus the first 4 seed. The big difference is you have a chance to not be a part of the true tournament. There's going to be a lot of people who are like me and don't view 65, 6, 7, and 8 as part of that big dance. And for the record, the same goes for the 11 seeds. If you lose, I do not count you as being a part of the big dance. No one is looking at the play-in games. The only people who are really looking at and remembering the play-in games are those who were in it. I cover Alabama State, so I'll remember it. But if I was at TSU just chilling, being me, I wouldn't care. I may care about the 16 seed. Most people don't care about 16 seeds in general, but at least they were actually a part of the bracket, the group of 64. That's the way that I look at it. That's my personal opinion. I would love to know how you feel about first 4 versus 16. In the first 4, you're playing for the right to be a 16 seed. Other people were just born in it like Bane. Anyway, on tomorrow's episode, I don't know where we're going to take it. Well, we'll probably talk about Southern women's basketball. Yeah, because they won a game, and I want to make sure I preview them. They won a title, and I want to preview them. It's just that I wanted to get the first 4 versus 16 seed in before the first 4 actually started. And Southern doesn't play until Wednesday, so I can preview them on Wednesday. Anyway, in the meantime, in between time, until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care. Stay blessed. Peace.